Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to dive into one of the most crucial skills for any data analyst, choosing the right tools for the job. It's not just about what tools you know, but why you choose to use them.
Of course you wouldn't. Think about it. In a kitchen, every knife has a very specific purpose. A great chef knows exactly which one to grab for which task to get the best result. Well, data analysis is exactly the same. Your toolkit is filled with these specialized instruments, and being a pro means knowing when, and more importantly, why to use each one. So, to make this all feel a bit more real, let's frame it with a mission. Let's imagine you're a data analyst at a food delivery app. We'll call it Hungry Now. Leadership comes to you with a pretty clear goal. Figure out why our deliveries are late and help us improve our delivery times. You've got all the data, but where do we even start?
Well, first things first, you got to know what's in your armory. This is all about understanding the landscape of tools that your organization provides. Just like that chef we talked about, we're laying all our knives out on the counter before we even think about starting to cook.
Now, what's really interesting here are the trade-offs. I mean, look at this. Excel is amazing for a quick look at a small file, but we all know its limit is big data. It just chokes. SQL, on the other hand, is an absolute powerhouse for filtering huge data sets right at the source, but it's not really built for complex stats. And Python? Python gives you automation superpowers, but that means you've got to maintain the code. The whole point is, there is no single best tool. There's only the best tool for the specific task right in front of you. Okay, so with our toolkit all mapped out, let's actually walk through that Hungry Now project. This is where we go from just knowing about the tools to making really smart, strategic choices at every single step of the journey. Our project has 4 pretty clear phases. First, we've got to explore the raw data just to see what we're dealing with. Then, we clean and transform it to make it actually usable. After that comes the fun part, the core analysis to find those insights. And finally, you have to present what you found in a way that leadership can understand and, actually act on.
So let's see this in action. In stage 1, exploration, we get hit with this data dump. It's full of large CSVs and these really messy JSON log files. So our constraint is the sheer size and variety of it all. The choice here has to be strategic. We'll use Excel for a quick peek at the smaller files, just to get a feel for them. But we have to immediately switch over to Python to handle the millions of rows and to parse that complex JSON data without everything crashing.
Next up is cleaning. And here, the real game changer is creating a process that's repeatable and totally error-free. I mean, doing this by hand would take forever, and you'd make so many mistakes. The smart play? Use SQL to do the heavy lifting inside the database itself, pulling only the columns and rows we actually need. Then we use a Python script to automate the rest, fixing dates, handling missing values, joining datasets. We just write the code once, and it runs perfectly every single time.
Now for the main event, the analysis. We actually have a few different needs here. We need to aggregate delivery times by postcode and by the hour of the day. That's a perfect job for SQL's speed. Then we need to run some statistical tests to see if what we're finding is actually significant. And Python's libraries are built for exactly this. Finally, leadership doesn't want some static report. They want to explore the data themselves. And this right here, is why Power BI is the clear choice for building an interactive dashboard. And in our final stage, it is all about the delivery. The findings have to be crystal clear for a non-technical audience, which makes that Power BI dashboard absolutely essential. But what's equally important is trust. How can your team trust and build on the work you've done? That is where a Jupyter notebook comes in. It documents every single step of your code and your logic, making sure your analysis is transparent and completely reproducible.
Okay, so we've made our choices. But the real skill of a top-tier analyst is explaining why. It is not enough to just say what you did. You have to be able to articulate the reasoning behind it. This is the secret. This is how you show true strategic thinking.
Great justifications aren't just about a tool's cool features. They're about real-world constraints.
You have to think about things like data volume, security rules, what your stakeholders actually need, and whether your analysis has to be repeatable. These are the drivers that turn a simple choice into a really strategic decision.
So here is a simple but really powerful framework you can use to structure your explanations. I call it the justification loop. You start with the constraint you are facing, like millions of rows of data. Then state the choice you made, like using Python. Explain the benefit, in this case, automation and repeatability. And then, and this is key, acknowledge the trade-off, like the need to maintain the code later on. This little loop proves you've thought through the problem from all angles. So what does this actually look like in practice? Let's compare a pretty standard explanation with a truly exceptional one. This is how you elevate your work from just, getting the job done to making a real, measurable impact. A pass-level answer, it just lists the tools. I used Excel, then SQL, then Python. Okay, it's factually correct, but it doesn't show any strategic thinking. The distinction-level answer, though, it tells a story. It explains that the choices were tailored based on constraints, like data size and stakeholder needs. It shows you're aware of the bigger picture, and that, right there, is what sets a great analyst apart.
And you know what? When you make these strategic choices, you get tangible results. The impact isn't just theoretical, you can actually measure it. This is the proof that your whole approach worked. So check this out. By scripting the cleaning process in Python instead of slogging through it manually in Excel, the time spent on data prep was cut by 94%. What once took hours now takes minutes. That's just a massive efficiency gain.
And by choosing Python and SQL over tools that just couldn't handle the scale, the project managed over 8.7 million rows of data without even a hiccup. No crashing, no lagging. It just proves the toolset was robust enough for the job.
And what about for the stakeholders? Well, by pushing all those aggregations down to the database and building a really efficient data model, the final Power BI dashboard's load time was reduced by 79%. That means leadership gets the insights they need way faster. So, let's bring this all together. What is the big takeaway from our little journey with Hungry Now? What's the real moral of our story here? Well, it all comes down to this. Knowing every single function in Excel is way less important than knowing when to put Excel down and pick up Python. The best analysts aren't just tool wizards who know all the features, they're tool strategists who understand the context.
It really all comes down to this simple three-part mantra. Choose the right tool for the right stage of the project. Justify that choice with clear, evidence-based reasoning, and then deliver real, measurable impact.
That's what being a strategic data analyst is all about. It's a skill that will absolutely set you apart in any project you work on. So now, I'm curious to hear from you. Based on your own experience, what's your go-to, your favorite combination of tools to take a project from raw data all the way to real insight?